Hi everyone, this is Denise with Creates with Love, and today I'm going to go over showing a very special and elegant, kind of like a milestone anniversary card. This card I designed completely in Design Space, so I did this for several reasons. I wanted to show you what an elegant, beautiful project you can design all on your own inside a design space by just using different images that Cricut Design Space has provided. Now, in addition, I really wanted to cover how to do test cuts. And the reason why is this project has several different materials that I'm going to be using for my design, but it also has a very intricate cut setting. And so sometimes when you have this many different things going on in one project, it's a really good idea, especially if you've never cut a particular material before, to do a test cut. So in this project, I decided to kind of combine the both. I will put the instructions on how to do a test cut along with this file in my resource library. So you can, if you need one or the other, they'll both be in my resource library that you can link to in my blog. So let me go ahead and just kind of cover this file just a little bit before we proceed with the test cuts. So basically this right here, have it all grouped together, is the actual card and the materials that's going to go in the card. So what I mean by that is this right here where you see the 60, this is the front cover of the card. This right here on the right is the inside of the card. And this that you see kind of in a gray color is actually, and the gray color in here is actually using Cricut Shimmer paper. So it's a little bit thicker. Well, it is quite a bit thicker than regular paper. So it really requires a specific setting. And since I'm going to use the wavy blade on these two squares, then I need to even make sure that I cut it out okay. All right. These circles here are foam squares that I'm going to be putting behind this area where the second doily is here. So that's going to give the card dimension. So this is craft foam. So there's another material that I'll be cutting with this design. And then this right here is the same doily that's right here. Okay, notice the design is the same. So this is a very intricate cut. Not only is this fine lines that the Cricut's going to be cutting, but these are actually all like little dot circles, okay, if you will. It's kind of hard to explain, but when you see it, it's very pretty. So it doesn't cut all the way through, right? I mean, you could go through, I guess, with a toothpick and kind of poke them out, but it just gives a really pretty effect to this doily. So I kept this as a test cut, the same size as this one. This square here, I set up to be the wave cut file. And this circle here, I cut up to be the craft foam square. So these are the three different issues that I might run into. And let me just tell you that doing test cuts like this saves you time and money in the long run. Because what happens if you go to cut this out, the square, with your wavy blade with a brand new material that you've never used? Chances are you're going to cut it. And you know what? Shimmer paper is not cheap. It's beautiful, but it has a price tag with it. And if you didn't get it on sale, then this is money right here. And so when you do a test cut on just a tiny little square, you're testing that this will cut out correctly once you get your settings correct. Now, I will be honest with you, the first time I cut this project out, I had not used my wavy blade with my shimmer paper. And when I did, and I went with shimmer paper, provided by Cricut in my material settings, and I used the wavy blade, it didn't cut all the way through. I wasted 2 squares of material. This one cut out fine because it was with my fine point blade at the time. So all it is to say is learn from my mistakes. So the best way to do something like this is that we're just going to start from the beginning. So Pretend these are not here. What I did was I designed my project. It's ready to go. I did forget to mention I included an envelope with this file if you want it. I'm choosing not to use the envelope. I choose to use an A7 envelope or a size A7 envelope for this card, which I'll link down in the description below. But if you don't have an A7 envelope on hand, then you can by all means use this template. This would use a large, the longer Cricut mat. Okay, so if you don't have a long Cricut mat, then what you can do is just click on it and it'll take you right to where the envelope is, and then just turn that layer off. Okay, so that way we don't have to worry about cutting out the envelope. All right, so again, this is the card. This is the foam squares I'm going to be cutting out, and these are my test templates. That's what I'm calling them, that you would make. So let's just pretend you've made this design right here and you've decided that you want to test out your craft foam. So you just make a small circle, approximate, doesn't have to be the same size, but just a small circle, and then put it as a different color, right? Because you need to, in your mind, you need to set the color of your material to what you'll remember when you go to put it on your mat. So I chose green. If I did everything in white, everything would come up on the same mat, if that makes sense. So you really need to separate each different material setting to a different color. Okay, so in order to do this, I'm going to select my card and I'm going to turn that layer off. Okay, so I grouped the entire card together previously. See, it's all in a group. And I'm just going to turn that layer off. I'm going to select my craft foam circles, select them, and then turn that group off. So all I'm left is with my test cuts. Okay, so the green circle, I set it up to be the craft foam setting using a deep point blade. The black square, I've set it up to be a wave blade tip using the shimmer paper. And then I'm going to be sure to use the foil craft board / holographic setting for this, because I have found that that is what works best on the shimmer paper with my Cricut Maker and using the wave blade. And then the orange doily I set up to be a fine point blade using just regular Cricut cardstock. I believe that for an elegant project like this, and especially one that has detailed, I have found that Cricut paper works the best. I love Cricut paper for detailed cuts, so just keep that in mind. When Cricut puts their paper on sale, stock up for times when you want to do intricate type cut settings. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do my test cuts. I've turned off my other layers, right? They're not going to cut out. There's nothing else on my mat. So this is specifically just for me to test the materials going for it. So at this point, I'm just going to click on Make It. And this is where I'll be switching back and forth, right? In between each one of these cuts, I need to make sure that I change the material settings, okay? So for this one, this is remember I had set it up to be the wave blade, okay? So I'm going to click Continue. And it's going to hook up to my maker. And this is where I'm going to select my settings. So for this, I'm going to click on Browse All Materials. And I'm going to be using the foil craft board holographic setting. And this falls under the category of artboard. It's foil craft board / holographic. So I'm going to select that one and click Done. And then it lets me know that I'm going to load the wavy blade in my clamp B. Now, I did not need to add more pressure, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that at default. Okay, so I'm going to grab my green mat. This is for the shimmer paper. I'm going to turn my mat upside down. You don't have to do this. I am doing this because I've used this mat quite a bit. It's about ready for a good cleaning so I can extend the life. So this part of my mat has been used a lot more than this part down here. So I'm going to flip my mat this way and put my shimmer material here. Okay, and I've got just a small square that I'm going to cut out. I believe it's about a 1-inch square. So I'm going to find a scrap piece that I have that will work really well. Okay, so this is a good scrap piece that I have. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to cut my little piece out right here. Okay, I'm going to press it down nice and firm. Just because my mat is been used. Okay, I'm going to switch to my wavy blade. So let me take my regular fine point blade out. And let's see, so I'm going to take my scoring wheel. I'm going to take it and release it. And I'm going to switch it to the wavy blade, which is number 31. And I'm just going to turn it. There we go. It's in there. Put it in. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to load my mat here. And press cut. Okay, I'm going to unload my mat. And I'm going to turn my mat upside down. It's the best way to release any material from your mat so that your material doesn't get curled is why I do that. Okay, so here's my cut. Now, if you've not done a wavy blade cut before, there is a little bit of kind of manipulating it in order to weed it. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it didn't cut all the way through. It just means that you might need to kind of bend it a couple times, especially at least with the shimmer paper. With regular paper, not so much. But with the shimmer paper, you just need to manipulate it just a little bit and get it to kind of release. It's not that it didn't cut through all the way by any means. Okay, so there's my test cut. Looks really, really good. Okay. All right, that looks really good. So I know that this cut is successful. If I wanted to, I could try a little more pressure, and I might do that and just see if it makes a difference, right? It's not going to hurt by applying more pressure at this point. But you see that it did have like that little kind of thread in the corner and this corner. So, you know, maybe that will make it release a little bit easier. So note to self, this is why you do test cuts. When like I showed in the previous thing, when I did just the regular shimmer paper setting, it wasn't enough pressure. I looked on the behind the scenes pressure settings for all of Cricut's recommended pressure settings. The shimmer paper is at 250 pressure, and this holographic one for the foil cardstock or whatever it was called is 300 pressure setting. So I'm going to go ahead on the next cut. When I make the card, I'm going to use the same setting that was equal to 300, but I'm going to select the option for more pressure. Okay, so there's a very good reason to do a test cut for your project. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to go ahead and go back to Design Space and select our next material to test. Okay, so we're back at Design Space. We just got done test cutting the wave blade shimmer paper. So now we're going to go to the next cut. You can see that it's highlighted. This is our next cut. And I know if I just hover my mouse over it, it's the little doily one. So in my mind, I know that that's going to be using the fine point blade with the Cricut cardstock paper. So I need to change my material settings, right? And so when you're off here, it's kind of not obvious, right? This is what the material is set to, and it's kind of not obvious on this screen how to change your materials. Well, anytime you need to change your material during a project, just look up to where the material is set to and go to the right, and you'll see that cute little chevron looking drop down arrow. If you click on that, that takes you back to where all your favorites are and your browse all materials. Okay, so I know that Cricut cardstock cuts perfect on my machine with this setting right here. So I'm just going to use the medium cardstock 80 pound. So my main thing for this one is just to make sure that my blade and my mat are strong enough to cut out basically the intricate cuts of this very detailed doily. Okay, so I'm going to load just my regular mat, and I'm going to load my fine point blade, and I will meet you over at the maker. Okay, so I went ahead and I put a piece of scrap Cricut paper on my mat, and I'm going to make sure I'm going to pull this out. I haven't used this. Well, I've used it, but what I want to do is ensure that since I'm doing a very detailed, intricate cut, I want to make sure that there's basically nothing stuck or sticky or any residue from possible vinyl or using it on infusible ink. I want to make sure that my blade is very clean. It doesn't help sharpen it, but it does really help with if there's anything possible on your blade. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I always do that step before intricate settings. I'm going to make sure it's seated very well. And I'm going to load my mat. And hit the go button. All right, and I can already tell that that cut out just beautifully. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my mat upside down. And carefully, right, because this is an intricate cut, even though it cut well, I still need to carefully peel it off of my mat so as not to tear the thin pieces of paper. Okay. I've got this remaining from the cut. That is not a problem. You can see how well it cut. I don't even have to pick it apart, okay? So that worked really well. So look how beautiful. Whoop, if I can get in the camera. There. That cut very beautifully, didn't it? I can't put it in my camera. Ah, okay. Apparently I don't look well backwards. Okay, so I'm looking for my scraper here. This is what I do to simply get any scrap pieces off. I just take them and move them out of my way. Okay, so I've got 2 successful test cuts here. Now I just have the foam piece to do left, okay? So let's go and change our settings. All right, so now our next one is going to be the green circle, which is the craft foam setting. So again, I'm going to go across from our material that we selected, hit that little drop down arrow, and I'm going to hit browse all materials. And in the quickest way to get to it for this one is I'll just do search all material, and I'll just put in craft foam and hit enter. And here we go, craft foam. Hit done. And then now check this one out. Because craft foam is a little bit thicker than paper, it asks you to move your star wheels all the way to the right. Make sure your material is no wider than 11 inches and is secured to a strong grip mat using masking tape on all 4 sides. Okay, so I've learned from cutting this before, I don't need any more pressure, but I will go and load my deep point blade and I will use my strong grip mat. Okay, I will meet you again over by the maker. Okay, so I've got my strong grip mat. That's the lavender or purple one, if you will. This is my craft foam. It's about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Probably less than that. Go ahead and put it in my upper left-hand corner. Now, my strong grip mat is still, I mean, I've used it, but it's really strong. And from my experience from using craft foam, I don't need to use masking tape around the edges of this. Now, if your strong grip mat has been used a bunch and it's starting to not be very sticky, then yes, definitely put tape around. But by just pressing on it really well, I'm not going to put masking tape around, okay? So, I need to load my deep cut blade. Okay, so I'm going to remove my fine point blade. And I'm going to use this is my deep cut blade. This is in the black housing. You can tell that this one is deeper, just in case you're new. This is the difference between a fine point blade and a deep point blade. I don't know if you can see that or not. But this is definitely deeper, right? It's going to help you get through those thicker materials. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and load it. It loads just like the fine point blade. Just make sure it's seated well in the housing. This is all ready to go. My star wheels are these here. I already had them moved over, quite honestly. I've used so many, cutting acrylic and doing all kinds of thick materials. Honestly, I forget to put this over here unless I have a problem with something that needed these, and then I'll end up moving them over. So that's up to you. They're hard for my old hands to move them back and forth. So I pretty much just keep them there until I run into a problem. Anyway, all right, so I'm going to load my mat. And hit cut. All right. And the funny thing about craft foam is when you take it off the machine, it's like, oh my God, it didn't cut. It looks like it just indented it. But check it out. You just pull this back and boink, it's really good, okay? So you don't really have to turn it over, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it because I keep preaching that it's much better to not curl your material. With craft foam, it kind of springs back, so it doesn't really matter as much. But there we are with our cute little circle. And again, this is on a bigger piece. This is what's gonna go in and create our depth behind our doily and other elements, okay? So that's what the craft foam is for. All right, so at this point, we've tested everything and everything is working good. The only thing I'm gonna do that I decided was I'm gonna add more pressure when I do the shimmer paper with the wavy blade, okay? So that in my mind, I know that when I go ahead to make this project, that's the one change I'm going to make to this project after doing my test cut. So I hope this part really helps you with test cuts. And again, you know, if you want to know, to me, this is the easiest way. Just turn off all the layers that you're not going to cut and just keep the only layers exposed, which is your test cuts. Go through the motion, do the test cuts, take any note that you might need to change, right? On mine, it was just the one notation that I'm gonna make. And then now you go back to Design Space and you will turn off your test cut layers and you will turn on your project layers, okay? Test cuts are as simple as that, but you can see how important they are, especially in this project where you're utilizing different materials and different types of blades and tips. All right? All right, so let's go ahead and go back over and we're gonna make the card now. All right, so now we know that our test cuts are golden. We're just gonna make that one minor change to the shimmer paper. We're gonna add a little bit more pressure. So at this point in your project, what you can do is go to your grouping, right? If this wasn't selected, just go ahead and select the group and then turn that layer off. So now you just need to find your card layer. Okay, and then I also want my foam squares on. So I'm going to scroll down and find my 3 circles. There they are, and turn this layer on. Okay, so now I know at this point I'm going to cut out my card. This is everything I need to make the card, and I'm going to cut out my 3 foam squares. So at this point, I don't need to make any adjustments yet. I will make my adjustments with each material, remember, just like in the test cut. From this point on, I'm just going to show how I'm going to start to set up this project. And then since I've already showed you how to find where to change your settings, just make sure that you change your settings for each different material. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead at this point and I'm going to click on Make It. And it's going to sort our projects into the different matte colors. So I know that when I see this color, it's gray, but this means that I need to load my shimmer paper. Okay, so my silver shimmer paper. So again, like I mentioned earlier, if you were making like a 50th wedding anniversary card, you might want to load gold silver. If you were making a 40th wedding anniversary, I think, what is it, kind of like a burgundy reddish type of color. So keep that in mind if you're working on your milestone type elegant simple cards. Okay, so each one, as you can see, it lets you know on the left hand side, we're going to do a wave and we're going to do a cut. On this one, it's going to, come on, there we go. It's got the card, it's going to score, it's going to cut, it's going to do the fine debossing, right? Because this is what the Cricut Maker we're doing, the debossing, and it's going to cut these 2 doilies. Then we get down to this one, and it's going to cut another size doily. It's going to cut a plain white Cricut paper, and it's going to deboss and cut this square. When we get down to this one, these are our 3, I made them yellow so that I could change the material when I get to this point. Even though my foam squares are white, I purposely made this color yellow to remind me to change my material to the craft foam. Okay, so I'm going to go back up to the first one and I'm going to click continue. And I know that since I've looked at this, I need to change this to my foil craft board holographic with more pressure setting. So I'm going to click continue. I'm going to click browse all materials. And it's actually right here, foil craft board holographic. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to click done. And I'm going to add from my test cut results, I'm going to add more pressure. Okay, so it says load wavy blade and to load your mat. So remember, in between each one of these cuts I make, you will need to come into Design Space with each different square and change your material settings right here, okay? So your most important thing to remember is after you've made a cut, look at your Design Space instructions, right? Change the material. If you see that it's a different material, make sure you change your settings and then go back and load your material. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this card. I can't wait for you to see it. It's very beautiful, simple, elegant. It's a beautiful 60th wedding anniversary card. All right, I'll meet you over in the maker. Okay, so I've got my wavy blade inside of my Cricut maker. I have arranged my pieces on my mat in Design Space to where I want my pieces to cut, okay? If you do not know how to do this, leave me a comment in the description or in the comment section, and I will do a specific video on how to rearrange items on your mat, especially helpful for matching your scrap pieces, okay? So what I did was I didn't have like a full sheet of shimmer paper left, right? This is what I have left in addition to this piece right here, okay? So what I did was I took a look at what I needed to cut and then I rearranged it on the mat in Design Space, that virtual preview mat, and then I specifically laid pieces where I want the Cricut Maker to cut, okay? And then because I'm using this mat that is kind of weak, I went ahead and I used my brayer to really press this material in because my mat is not as sticky, okay? So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and load it into my machine. And at this point, I'll be watching Cricut Design Space because it will let me know when to switch from the wavy blade to the fine point blade. Okay, so it asked me to switch to my fine point blade. I accidentally pushed the button on the blade, so I pulled it back out, made sure that my blade's not going to fall out. See, stuff happens. and then I put the blade back in. So everything should be good. I'm going to hit the go button again, and it'll change to the fine point blade and make the final cuts. Okay, so this looks really, really good. I'm going to flip my mat upside down and just gently peel away. Got my little numbers here I want to be careful with. There's no joining. Okay, so here's my little 6 and 0. Just need my pick here. Okay, to pick out the center of that. So I'm just going to move these aside. And then I've got this part here, and look how easily, since we added more pressure, it comes off of here nice. And if you get one piece that just wants to kind of hang on, just kind of twist. There we go. Perfect. Looks really, really good. I'm going to set this aside. I've got these. I'm going to turn over just like the other one. Just turn them upside down. And I've got my intricate cut doily piece right here. Okay, so you can see I've got some pieces. I'm going to have to do some cleanup on this mat here in a little bit. Okay, and on this piece, I'm just going to make sure that this kind of pops off. It's got that one little corner. There we go. Looks really good. Put that aside. And then this piece, there's probably going to be some poke out moments that I'll have to do. I can set this aside and do that in a moment. But I just wanted to show you how easily, by increasing the pressure, how awesome it made this, right? Look how easy that is to just poke out. It's not going to be time consuming at all to just go through and just kind of poke in each little hole and get this doily super cleaned out, right? There's nothing that's hanging on. It literally cut this by putting on that setting that we did. It actually cut this twice. That's why, I mean, by using the fine point blade, look at that. That is awesome. This paper is not really easy to cut, so that's just beautiful. I love Cricut for that. So again, test cuts. I cannot stress them enough for something like this. Okay? All right, so we've got our pieces here. We've got our two little pieces and our beautiful doily. And we've got our 6-0, geez. I'm getting tongue-tied. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to go back to Design Space, I'm going to make my material setting changes for my, I think it's my white cardstock is next. So keep that in mind. Like I said, just keep going back to Design Space. Look at what material or what, what part of your project is next, and then match your material settings to what you're going to be doing next. And then when I looked at Design Space, it says to load the black pen. So the one I'm using is the glitter gel pen in the color black. Okay, so it's the GG glitter black Cricut pen. Load that in clamp A. And then it wants the scoring wheel in clamp B. So I'm going to take my fine point blade out, take my wavy blade off, get my scoring wheel number 1. Okay, so push down, scoring wheel number 1 tip. And I'm going to load my mat. And hit the C button. And it's going to draw and it's going to score. Okay, so it wants me to load the Deboss tip, which is under here. Sneak in and get it. Should have grabbed it before. Make sure I have any other tips I might need. Okay, so when I'm switching to the Deboss, I'm going to take out the scoring wheel. I'm not going to press anything here. Take off the scoring wheel and put in the Deboss tip. Okay, so that's tip number 21. Has the little dimple there on there. I can take the pen out, even though it doesn't tell you to, but I like to keep mine with the ink or the lid on as much as possible to help prevent any drying out. Once I load that Deboss tip, then I can press the C button again. Okay, so now Cricut Design Space is asking me to load the fine point blade. So again, don't press anything here, just take out your Deboss tip and switch to your fine point blade. Make sure it's seated in there. And hit the C button. Okay, so I'm going to unload my mat, and you can see everything looks lovely. Everything's cut really, really well. I'm going to turn it over and just peel it back. Okay, so I've got this square, I've got this square, and actually it looks like I'm going to have to do this square again. The reason why, and this can happen, I forgot to do it. This pen is fine. I always store it tip side down, but for whatever reason, and see, like I said, I usually do this before I use a pen. I usually take the lid off, and just, on a piece of scrap paper, just make sure that the pen is okay. This time I did not do that, and check out what happened. The T and the R did not write out. It's almost like the ink just couldn't get with the program until it got to the U and the E. So I could try to write this out, but quite honestly, my handwriting is not up to the game of doing this. And this is a special anniversary card, so I want it to be perfect. So I will just, when I'm all done, I will go back into Design Space, shut everything off but this layer, right? I'll move everything that was on this mat to a different mat. That way I can just turn everything off, and I will make sure my pen is good, and I will have it cut out just this square plus the debossing and the writing. Okay? So there's a good tip for you, right? This can happen to anyone. It's always a good idea to use your pen before you actually put it in the machine. I didn't do it this time. And it's not going to happen every time, right? So it's a hit or miss. So just to give you a heads up, that is my normal practice, but I've got so many different changes with this project. Stuff like this can happen. I don't want it to frustrate you. Just learn from your mistakes. I'm sure I'll make plenty more, but I love crafting, I love it so much. So good tips. All right, so look at this. Remember our test cut from earlier. Look how perfect this is, okay? And even this one came out really good, which is not as detailed as this one. So I'm going to move these out of my way. And I'm going to flip this over. And I might need my spatula for this one, but we'll just see. Oh. So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. I'm pulling my mat back, and then I'm just kind of pulling away at the doily, okay? And I've got the other one right here. So I'm just pulling away. Perfect. And then I've got these little pieces that I can scrape off right here. Okay, so just take your scraper, scrape them right off of the mat. I'm going to move my mat out of the way. Okay, and then once again, like before, I can just use my little pick. Where did it go? Here it is. And just kind of doink these out of here, right? They're not stuck on there. They're just kind of hanging out. There we go. Looks really good. Okay, so I will go back to Design Space and look and see what the next step is. Okay, so the next one is, again, still using the Cricut paper. So I don't need to make any material changes for this. Okay, and in this one, I've got to load my, let's see, it says load the fine Deboss or Deboss tip. Okay, so I'm going to take my fine point out for now, switch back to my Deboss tip. And load the mat. This turned out so beautiful. I don't know if you can see this. The debossing is really beautiful in person. It's amazing. So intricate. And you can see how well that doily cut. Everything cut so good. Okay, so I'm going to turn my mat upside down. Okay, so there's the debossing, just beautiful. Just got a regular square, and this is good. And then we still have our doily on there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my mat this way and just gently peel it back. I'll use this if I need to, so hopefully you can see that. Okay, so I'm just gently, right? I don't want to curl it. I want to make sure it comes off perfectly flat. There we go. And then I'll have a couple pieces that I'll need to bang out like I did before, right? They're totally cut out good. They're just kind of sitting there hanging out. Okay, so that looks really, really good. Set that aside. I'm going to take my spatula. Okay, so I got to check out Design Space, go back over there because now I know that it's the foam, the craft foam setting, okay? So I'm going to be switching my mat, but also switching my material settings in Design Space. So if you recall from before, we needed the purple mat and we needed the deep point blade housing. So I know that that's what I'm going to be switching to. If you don't have your rollers moved to the right, make sure that you do that part now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch my blade because I already know I need to. And let me go change it in Design Space. Okay, and here is our craft foam pieces, okay? So because we don't have to worry about craft foam bending, right? We can just kind of pull it off. And there are our 3 circles. So for the circles, I'm going to go ahead and just peel them off this way. There we go. Okay, so here comes the fun part of putting this beautiful card together, okay? I've got the top part, I've got this is the inside of the card, this is the card base, I've got these doilies here. I already stuck this on using double-sided tape, so I tried to cut a few steps to not make it as long for you to watch, but this is how I did it. I just lined up some tape and then I peeled off the top part since this is double-sided tape. Okay? And then I went ahead and I stuck the 6-0 on here using art glitter glue. It is this glue here is what I use. It's my favorite glue, and then I like to put it in these little tip jars with the fine point tip, so it's really easy to direct the glue exactly where you want it to go. Okay, so let me get back here. I'm going to go ahead and fold the card first so I can place the inside. So let me just stick this here. Make sure it is the inside. Okay, it is. I'm going to go ahead and fold it along the score line. And whenever you're working on a special card like this too, make sure your hands are clean. Kind of goes without saying, but since it's such a white special card. And then you can also use your scraper. I like to use my small one as my kind of like a bone folder. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and turn my music on and fast forward through this part, but you'll be able to see what I'm going to do, and I'll put all of the steps in my blog in the order that everything goes. Okay? I wanted to mention too that sometimes just my reasoning for using tape versus glue is if I'm not in a hurry to make a card, I will choose glue, because glue has like kind of a repositional moment of time, so that is very helpful. You can kind of manipulate something a little bit if you get it slightly offline. So that is that. If it's something that I'm really worried about it being stuck really well, and if I'm not worried too much, kind of like that's why I'm using the tape for the foam pieces, is I want those stuck really, really, really well, and this tape is really strong and really good for that. So I just have to be extra careful when I position those, okay? So I just wanted to kind of give you my reasoning for that. So for this part, I'm going to go ahead and use the tape for the back of this, because I'm not sure how the glue is going to stick to this shimmer paper, okay? And since it's a special card, I want to make sure that it's stuck on there really, really well. I did that a little bit too long. I suppose you could also use the tape runner, like any of these kind, but I find these are a little bit messier as opposed to using this type of tape for this type of project. So there's some reasoning there for you. Okay, so the inside of the card is basically done. So now I'm going to work on the outside part. So I'm just going to set this aside. I like to work from the top down. So I've already got my 60 on the top doily. So the next layer down is going to be this next size down doily. So for this, I'll be using glue. And I'm not going to put a spacer here, but I'll be putting a spacer on the next level down. So it doesn't have to be everywhere. And then I also like to use tweezers for positioning. I find that really helpful. Okay, so that looks good. And then this part is going to go on top of the white doily, which is this part here, but it's going to have the spacer. So I'm going to use the small spacer. I believe when I cut out the project the first time, I actually had 3 sizes of these circles, which is 1, 2, and this was the 3rd one. I actually cut it down to 1.25, and I changed it in Design Space, so you don't have to worry about that. But I accidentally made 1 too big, right, because that would have been too big for under here. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. You see me using a different one, but in Design Space it is actually correct. So what I'm going to do is put this, and again I'm using the foam on, or this type of tape on the foam, because I really want to make sure that it sticks. So I'm just going to place it. This doesn't have to be perfect, you just want to just plop it there, center it as best you can. And then this part I'm going to put more tape on, and then this is going to give it a nice level of separation, so it gives you a nice dimension for the card. And dimension is so important in making a card look better than just a flat surface. Okay, so just line it up really good. Try not to squish these sides in. In fact, they actually might even go ahead and go for the tweezers again on this one. Okay, and that looks good. So again, when you're putting this layer on, be careful not to press the lace part down. You want to keep that element of dimension there. So just press where you know that the tape is behind it. Okay. And then now, this part goes on top of the shimmer paper. Okay, so this is going to go, I'm going to add some more tape here. Like I said, I already stuck this part on. And then I'm going to take this and I want to line it up with this one here. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit tricky, but it's very doable. Okay, so I'm going to put my tape on this part. Good. So again, be careful when you're pressing it down. You don't want to press on the outside. You want to press just where the area that you put the tape. All right, this is looking good. So now this part is going to be raised yet again on the embossed layer, and that will be our last raised level. Okay, so I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Right now, I'm going to assemble these parts together. So basically, you've got your base. You've got your base piece, and all of this is going to go on top of here. Okay, so you've got your base piece. Make sure that you have it the right way up. This has a little flaw in the paper, but it's going to be covered by the shimmer, so I'm not worried about it. And then the shimmer paper is going to go next, just centered. Everything is easy in this card because everything is basically centered. And then this plain, again, just the textured Cricut cardstock goes here. And then this is the debossed layer, which is just gorgeous. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I don't know if it does it any justice at all. But in person, this is really, really beautiful. Very detailed. Even though you're only going to see the outside edge, you know, of each corner, it's just very, very beautiful. And this I'm going to put on with glue because it does kind of have a little bit of a roll to it. My mat was pretty sticky in the spot that this was on, so I don't want to manipulate it too much, but the glue is going to stick nicely to just the Cricut paper. Okay, so that's my first layer that I'm going to work on right now. Okay, so just set that aside, put this up like that. Make sure this is the right side. And then I'll put this on the back. This is the smaller piece, so the glue is going to go on the back of it. Apparently, I let it set too long. There we go. I actually keep a piece of jewelry wire on the inside of one of my drawers here. I just tape it with blue tape to the inside of my drawer, and what it does is it, whenever I need to unstick, or unclog I should say, that's what I use. Alright, so I'm just going to turn this over and just line it up as best that you can. Actually looks really good. Okay, and then this layer is going to go on top of this shimmer layer, and I'm going to use tape again on top of the shimmer. So I'm going to turn this over and put the tape on that. And then our final layer right here. And then this will go, of course, on top of that. So I'm going to go ahead and use the tape one more time. Alright, so now this is going to go on here, and then this spacer is going to go here, and then this is the final piece that will go right on top, and then our card will be complete. Isn't that beautiful? Just such a pretty card. Okay, so what I'm going to do is before I put this on here, I'm going to put this on here. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to put this on here first. So it's going to peel the tape off. Actually, no. Wait, hold up. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to peel the tape off, and I put extra tape on this one too, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, because this is, I mean, it's not heavy, but for a card, it has a little bit of weight to it. Okay, so I'm just going to put this right in the middle. Okay, so now I'll put tape on this side. Now again, be careful not to press around this edge here. You want to press just where you know that the tape is underneath. And now, and because this, you know, like I said, has the weight to it, I'm going to use the tape once again because I really feel like the tape is stronger than the glue at this point. And then our card will be done. We'll open it up and it'll be the front. Okay, so just a little bit more tape here. And this one, you want to press pretty much all around. And then just do lightly in the middle like that. And then you should be good. Now this kind of card, oh my gosh, it's so pretty. All the different layers, and it looks so good from different angles. It's gonna look so pretty. And what's nice is even though it's got this weight, it's not too top heavy because of this layer here. Very pretty. I don't know if it's just too bright to see here any better. I think my lighting is better over here for not to wash out the light. Anyway, so pretty. So picture this like for a 50th wedding anniversary with gold shimmer instead of silver. It'll be pretty. And then for the 40th, I think it's the 40th, that's the burgundy. Right? And cool that Cricut also sells the gold, silver, and the shimmer actually in one packet. And then here's the inside of the card. So the inside has the debossing and the glitter gel pen. Really pretty. Alrighty, I think that's it. The only other thing I want to mention is I don't know that I would mail this card because of, well, I would mail it, but I would mail it not just in an envelope through the postal service. You're going to have to require extra postage for this because of the weight. I don't know how much, but I can just tell by feeling it that it would. It will fit. This is an A7 envelope? I think that's what they're called. A7? Yeah. A7 card will fit this. But I would be careful, right? Like this is what I'll end up, I'm going to hand carry this, luckily. So I can be very careful and just, you know, hand carry the card over like this. But just to let you know that an A7 envelope does fit these. I'll link the ones that I get down and below if you don't have any and you need some. And I just always have these and the craft paper style on hand. But you could also put this like in a little box and mail it if you wanted to keep it, you know, if you needed to mail it. That's so pretty. Anyway, I hope my parents love this. I wanted to show this to you all, and I have also made them a shadow box, a layered shadow box that I designed in Adobe Illustrator, and that's out on my blog, and you can get the files for that. That'll work in any cutting machine. For this card, I made it just for Cricut Design Space, but the layered shadow box you can use with any cutting machine. It'll work. So I hope you like these ideas for a really pretty, unique, very special anniversary wedding, or wedding anniversary. Anyway, as always, remember and continue to create with love. Take care. Bye.